For as long as I can remember, I have set goals and made detailed plans to accomplish what I've set out to achieve. Some of those earlier goals included being offered the job that I had set my sights on in high school upon graduating college, becoming a national accounts director at the age of 30, and by 35, having earned my doctorate degree in organizational leadership. I made stuff happen. With a clear goal and a trusted plan, there was not a problem I could not solve. Or so I thought. That was before kids. So in graduate school, I met my husband, and together we had set a goal to retire at the age of 50 and travel the world, which did not happen, by the way. Having kids was not a part of our master plan. We were going to keep it simple and clear, and we were going to live the life. Life was great. In my mid-30s, I woke up one day with this pit in my stomach that was not going away. Between 9/11 and losing a dear friend to cancer, I realized that I needed to slow down, live in the moment, and be a mom. I wanted to experience all that came with being a parent and to care for someone other than ourselves. So, plans changed. With lots of conversations, and yes, methodical research and planning, we decided on growing our family through adoption. 2 years later, we were on a plane headed to South Korea to bring home our 6-month-old son. It was truly love at first sight. He was and is engaging and affectionate and curious. At the age of 1, he was speaking in his first sentence, Papa Drive Volvo. That counts as a sentence. We thought it was a sentence. He had an incredible fascination for cars and pretty quickly knew the makes and models of most of the vehicles on the road. He loved reading and could not put down any book that he could possibly find. We were absolutely nailing this parenting thing. We were nailing it. So much so that we had his and our lives completely mapped out. Remember, I'm a planner. I like to have my plans. And we decided to start adopting and bring home our second child. Fast forward a few years. Our older son, at the age of 3, started preschool. And on the first day of preschool, like all parents, I was excited, I cried. I couldn't wait for all of the friends and play dates and all the field trips, and I couldn't wait to hang those colorful pictures on a refrigerator. Right? I was just so excited for all that was going to come for his and for our future. About 4 weeks later, we received a call from the preschool. And when we received that call and we walked into the conference room, we were greeted by our son's teacher and by the school psychologist. Now, in my mind, I couldn't wait for the conversation that was going to come because they were going to share with us that we have a gifted child. Right? That's the conversation. That's what we were going to be told. Instead, they quickly shared with us concerns regarding his sensory sensitivity, his restricted interests, where I thought all of the vehicles was like a sign of, something, smartness. There was a restriction there, and his social difficulties. They encouraged us to speak with our doctor. I was absolutely blindsided. That was not the conversation I thought that we were going to have when I entered the conference room with my husband. An autism spectrum disorder diagnosis, and 3 preschools later, my confidence as a parent and my illusion of control were 100% shattered. Instead, those feelings were replaced with frustration, embarrassment, and feeling judged. And those feelings only intensified over time as we continued down this path, and it was impacting all aspects of my life. For the first time at the age of 40, I was faced with a problem that I could not solve, and it did not conform with my tried and true playbook of defining, analyzing, solving, and move on. My identity was rocked, and I mean it was rocked. Our life quickly became a series of diagnoses with countless doctors and therapists and special educators. To put this into perspective, over the last 17 years, we've had 12 different psychiatric hospitalizations, 9 different developmental and mental health diagnoses, 34 and counting medication trials, and 9 different therapeutic and residential programs in 5 different states. It's a lot. Like, I'm pretty proud that I'm actually standing upright, and this is a good thing. The gray hair kind of gives it away that it's been a stressful 17 years, but that's okay. Our life was literally out of control. It was out of control. Everyone had opinions, and I was losing my voice, I was losing my confidence, and I had no plan, and my plan is my security blanket. I need a plan. I was in full-blown reaction mode, and I was starting to make some pretty bad decisions. It was during this time that I ended up in the ER with what we thought was a heart attack. And it was during my stay at the hospital that I had time to reflect. For a career, I coach leaders, and I build high-performing teams. Yet, when it came to effectively advocating for my son, I was a shell of my professional self. I immediately needed to shift my perspective from being a reactive mom to that of the CEO of my son's life. The following 5 leadership principles were and remain game changers in how I hopefully show up as an effective mom first and foremost, and not only support our son, but support other families and children as well. So let me share with you the 5 leadership principles. The first is to have a clear team vision. And I want to emphasize the word team vision. So when I work with teams here across the university on developing a shared vision, we start with the why. Why is a vision important? And I want you to imagine being asked to pack for a vacation and you don't know the destination, right? Without knowing where you're going, it's really hard to plan and prepare. A vision provides the destination. A team vision clearly communicates the shared values, and it describes how the team operates and functions at its best to achieve shared goals. And ideally, a good vision helps to also inspire and motivate. So a vision is really important. Early on, we did not have a clear vision for how we wanted to work and partner with the so many doctors and therapists and special educators that were now all of a sudden in our life. And I was having a really hard time and getting frustrated because I wasn't able to articulate what we expected and what we needed. When individuals were showing up in a way that their behaviors and actions weren't in alignment with our values and our expectations, I became frustrated. And as some of you know, everyone knew it. I didn't hide it very well. So in order for us to clearly communicate a team vision, it was important for my husband and I to take a step back and to clearly define the values that were most important to us. And those values that rose to the top of the list include relationships, collaboration, partnerships, and humor, right? You gotta have some humor when you've got all of this chaos happening around you. Humor is important. So although our son's goals have changed over the years, our vision has not, and it serves as our guide, it serves as our North Star. Our vision remains to actively support our son to achieve his best life through collaboration, creative problem solving, strong relational partnerships, and humor. The next principle has to do with defining your role. And I'm sure that all of you can think of a time when you've had a leader who had a really hard time of letting go. I wasn't sure where the introduction was going around, like, my need of control here. I might fall into this category. But leaders who don't let go and they need to do it all, right? And as a result of that, they contribute to feelings of frustration and confusion and lower productivity. A high-performing team is dependent on a leader having clearly defined roles and explicit responsibilities. And for me, the analogy that really brings this to life is to think about a symphony orchestra, right? The conductor is a musician most times, but they don't jump in and play an instrument. Instead, they serve as a guide to coordinate the various orchestra members to perform in harmony. So unlike a conductor, I did have a strong need and desire to be involved in every single decision. In addition to being the mom, I was also trying to be the therapist and the educator and the doctor and the pharmacist and so many more. If I wanted to if I wanted to create a high-performing team that was in alignment with our vision, I needed to really take a step back and define my role. It was really important. My first role is and remains to be the best mom I can possibly be to both of our kids. And to do that, I needed to have the energy to be present, to guide them during our many ups and downs, and to be their biggest champions and to help them be the best versions of themselves. My second role is to be a leader. And as a leader, it's my responsibility to inspire and motivate a really diverse group of individuals that range from doctors to van drivers and everything in between, to work in coordination and to go that extra mile so that our son's goals were being realized. And third and finally is I needed to start to be an effective advocate. And to do that means I had to stop reacting and thinking about the moment and instead having a long-term view in which I was building networks and building relationships and asking really good questions so that I could best represent our son's interests in a way that was heard and understood. So that slowing down and not reacting was really important. The third leadership principle is to embrace an agile mindset. I was jumping ahead a little bit there. So leaders, and this is a hard one for me, leaders who embrace an agile mindset, they value innovation, they value flexibility, and they value gathering diverse perspectives in order to quickly be able to pivot based on the best information they had at the moment. They foster a team culture in which continuous learning is just a given. Experimentation is a must, and it's really important to celebrate those incremental wins along the way. For me, it was difficult, and it still remains difficult, to apply this principle of being agile for many reasons. As for raising neurodiverse children comes with many, many, many ups and downs and unexpected setbacks. And it's a trial, and it's a trial and error approach to figuring out therapy and medication. That, coupled with having a really strong problem-solving personality and liking to fix it, created a lot of challenges for me. It was every time we tried something new, I was confident that we found the fix. And every time that thing we tried did not work, I got frustrated, I panicked, and at times I became really depressed. It was imperative, not just for my son and our family, but for myself as well, to embrace an agile mindset. I needed to accept the iterative and imperfect process of trying to treat symptoms associated with autism and a mood disorder and the many, many side effects from the different medications that our son is on. I needed to truly appreciate that every time we tried something, that tomorrow we learned something new. And it was when I recognized that with each new thing we tried, we learned, that I got to see all of the gifts that came through that journey of learning. And then finally, it was really important that I let go of this idea of fixing it and instead really celebrate those incremental wins in the moment. That shift in perspective to this day is one of the greatest gifts that thinking about an agile mindset has provided me. The next is, again, cultivating authentic relationships, and this is the one that is just so near and dear to me. There is so much research out there that speaks to the correlation between authentic leaders and outstanding team performance. Leaders who really prioritize genuine relationships, and when I say genuine relationships, truly rooted in trust and vulnerability and deep connections, absolutely realize incredible commitment and collaboration and invest in the well-being of each other. When my son graduated high school, I reached out to the many, many, many teachers and therapists, paraprofessionals, heads of schools, and requested and asked them to share congratulatory video messages. I was overwhelmed. I was truly overwhelmed when I listened to their words. They were filled with heartfelt well wishes, but they were also filled with reminiscent stories going back to preschool of fun stories about our son, but also ways in which their interactions with our son had impacted their career trajectory. It was overwhelming. There was such joy in those messages. There was truly a sense of gratitude for being a part of our life, but there was also joy in listening to the messages and in the way in which they celebrated this monumentous milestone with our family. Cultivating authentic relationships is at the heart of our vision, and it doesn't happen by chance. All parties must value relationships, and all parties must desire that deep connection. I've always said when I chat with other families that finding individuals with the right expertise is not that hard. But taking the time to find the individuals with the right expertise who align with your values does take time. And when you find those individuals and you truly invest in the relationship, magic happens. I can say today without confidence that our son's many accomplishments at one time by doctors and teachers and everyone else, including ourselves as parents, we never thought would be attainable, is 100% a result of these relationships that we've fostered over the years. Incredibly grateful for our incredible dream team that has been with us throughout the years, but it goes back to our vision. The last, not least, by any stretch, is prioritizing self-care. Self-care is essential. Leaders who prioritize self-care send a really strong message that it's not selfish, it's not indulgent, it's necessary, and it is valued. Leaders who prioritize self-care are investing in their own physical, mental, and emotional health, and in doing so, they're not only improving the performance of themselves, but that of their team. When we were initially received the first autism diagnosis, again, thinking about my personality, not a surprise, I spent all of my energy, all of my effort, all of my waking hours, many of which were under the sheets, trying to Google on my phone to find the fix. All of my energy went towards trying to solve this problem at the expense of not only my own health, but my relationships, and most importantly, in regards to giving the same level of energy to our younger son. I was consumed with trying to fix the problem, and I was convinced that I could. Still didn't have that agile mindset yet. I was convinced that I could, in fact, solve this problem. When my husband had suggested various forms of self-care, such as exercise, talking to a therapist, taking a break, I became really defensive and angry. Because what I heard was that I couldn't handle our situation, and I was failing as a mom. Right? That is what I heard, and that is what I believed for the longest time. The heart attack scare, though, was a wake-up call. And what it really made me realize is that my husband and others were not challenging my competence as a mom. Instead, they really recognized and admired my dedication and my commitment. And they also, though, understood the importance of my role. What they also understood, though, is if I did not start to prioritize myself, not only was I putting my own well-being in jeopardy, I was also putting the well-being of our family in jeopardy as well. So I needed to really learn that lesson about prioritizing myself so that I could bring the best to others. I'm continuing to work on self-care. I am clearly a work in progress. Trying. I've definitely gotten better at recognizing when I have too much on my plate. I'm getting much better at asking for help and taking time for me. Taking time for me, though, without the guilt in doing so. And I love the quote that self-care is about giving yourself first and others the best of you instead of what's left of you. Working on that. I am working on that. Parenting is inherently challenging, and raising neurodiverse children adds an incredible layer of complexity. Lots of gifts, but an incredible layer of complexity. To fulfill my role as a present mom and an engaged mom, to be a resilient leader, an effective advocate, meant that I needed to take a step back and let go of the illusion of control and to let go of the notion that I could fix this problem. It was not a problem to be fixed. And I also needed to really start to embrace an agile mindset. And in doing so, by embracing an agile mindset and letting go of the notion that I was the only one that could solve our problem, investing in my own well-being. My advice to parents starting down the path of raising a child with unique long-term needs is threefold. First is to have a clear team vision at the onset. Know what's important to you, know your values, and don't be shy about communicating them to others. It makes a difference. Second is, like all good CEOs, be really clear about your role as a parent and your role that you want to play on your son's or child's team or on your child's team. Again, be really clear about that role and stay true to that role. And third and finally is to continue to really build and nurture your dream team. Having that village, having that team around you is so critical to not only your child's success, but your success as a family as well. And then finally is to unapologetically prioritize your own well-being so that you can provide the best of yourself to not only you, but to others as well. Thank you.